you are someone who's drinking, you go on your trip, you come home and maybe you're still drinking, or you go out to a restaurant, you're more likely to be sustaining this inflamed state for a longer period. Medical disclaimer. This podcast is intended for educational purposes only and does not serve as medical advice. Kate and John are not medical professionals. This podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or prevent any illness. Always consult your physician before making lifestyle changes. Welcome back to the Illuminated Path. This is episode 76. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about inflammation because we had a very recent experience where this was just very prominent. And so we thought we would do an episode all about inflammation, the symptoms that we had, the causes of it, and how we kind of got back to our normal state of being. So
yeah, and I think it's a good topic because, again, always tying in with that awareness piece of being able to understand what is my body telling me. And you and I kind of each have our telltale signs.
Yeah.
So how's the week? We're in our basement.
We're in our basement, finally, officially.
Yep.
We have some more work to do to our little podcast studio area, but
yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, my shot is just kind of this green oasis. So
I'm just so happy to be down here. It's been such a long time.
It's been years that we've been dealing with flooding in the basement and finished part of it, and then it flooded again, and then we had more stuff, and it's been so long and such a long time coming that to move down here, have our offices, our studio, our podcast set. We've got plans for a content area and another kind of set. So I think being here is it's kind of surreal.
Yeah, it doesn't feel real. So very exciting because we've talked about this so many times and it's finally here.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah. Other things, I am officially halfway through my pregnancy.
Yep.
So I'm 21 weeks a day after this episode comes out. So that's exciting. I can't believe it's already halfway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we got back from our trip to Florida, which was such a lovely break.
Oh, so nice.
We went to the most beautiful area. We were in Lake Worth Beach, which is a little bit south of West Palm Beach, much more suburban-y. We still got to see the city of West Palm, but it was this beautiful walkable area, and just the sun and warm weather was so refreshing.
And I've been telling everybody that we literally burned 800 to 1,000 calories more being there and walking more. So just being home, I'm trying to walk a lot more because it's so easy, and it's a way to really just stay slim. I just realized our podcast set, our table has white paint splatter all over it. So if you're watching on YouTube, yes, the table is not dirty, but it's got white paint all over it.
Yeah, from our paint sprayer splattering on it when we were doing the ceiling and the walls. But
we're a work in progress.
It's here for now.
All right, so let's get started. You and I in Florida. We were feeling, I don't think we noticed it right away, but I think toward the end of the trip, we were both feeling inflamed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to get into that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I started noticing it pretty quickly. I feel like it was not the very first day there, but maybe the end of the second day or the beginning of the third day. I was why does my stomach feel like it doubled in size?
Yeah.
I was oh my gosh, the baby has doubled in size since we've been here. I just felt huge. And that was my first kind of sign. And I was what is this is just weird.
Yeah,
and you noticed it too.
Abnormal growth.
You were wow, your pregnancy is really coming in, because I didn't show a ton at the beginning. And so I knew that it was going to start happening more. So that was my very first sign. And I was oh my gosh, okay, cool. Baby is showing now.
Right.
So I wasn't that concerned by it, but I feel that was my very first sign and symptom. The next thing that I started getting a lot more was my face felt really puffy. I've heard a lot about people doing things to prevent pregnancy face being a thing where you kind of get just more puffy and inflamed. And I was like, oh, okay, that's happening now already. And
Yeah.
it was red. Like I was splotchy, a little red, like inflamed, and I was getting acne, which for me, acne is always kind of a sign of like inflammation, cortisol levels, blood sugar dysregulation. That's always been a thing for me. So I was like, okay, something is definitely off like internally for this to be showing up.
Right. And I think too, we've talked about this a little bit. Obviously, you're not drinking because you're pregnant, but um, if you do drink, a lot of inflammation will go to your face.
Mhm.
A lot of times, people who stop drinking, they see it in their face,
Mhm.
which is just kind of a fun fact. Because if you are really seeing your face looking puffy, a lot of times you might have been drinking a lot recently.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you had a lot of those symptoms. Mine primarily is just bloating. Like I get uncomfortable, to the point where like my stomach hurts. Like it presses out and it
Mhm.
hurts. Um,
And I think I was bloated too, like,
right,
but you can't tell as much because you got a baby bump. And then
right.
it's like I was having like this huge baby bump, but it was also bloating on top of it. So,
Yeah. So I think, you and I having this level of awareness of our bodies and what they're trying to tell us, um, what is causing it, right? How are we getting to that point and feeling that and um why?
I think the very first and probably like biggest thing is just the way we ate, even though we didn't do that bad.
Yeah.
I felt like we did a pretty decent job. We bought food to cook ourselves breakfast every day in the Airbnb.
Yep.
So we didn't eat out for that meal every day. We did go get coffee every day,
Right.
which,
Activates cortisol,
right.
especially in the morning, can absolutely affect your digestion, exacerbate bloating,
Hmm.
anything. So,
And then we found this restaurant that we really liked, and it was a walk away from our Airbnb. So that was honestly just so nice to walk to dinner and everything. And that felt
hmm,
great. But I don't feel like we ate terribly, but we had french fries
yeah.
and we
Yeah.
had a few things that were fried. And just that alone, the seed oils and being fried and eating fried foods, especially when it's not in your normal diet,
Right.
like instant inflammation. There's
Yeah.
not much you can do to stop that if that's what you're consuming.
Yeah. And I think, us being there, so we always travel with like a greens drink that helps bloating. And that's, it's not managing it. It may help a little bit. I think we were able to manage it a little better because we were able to walk,
Mhm.
around everywhere. But yeah, absolutely. We were having things that aren't in our normal diet.
Yeah. So, and even like with eating those fried foods, we still had a few meals where we were like, doing like a little salad bar type of
Yeah.
meal. We were doing this guacamole thing where you like made your own bowl with guacamole and all sorts like really good foods. And two places specifically we went had no seed oils.
Yep.
There were protein, salads, like good ingredients. So I'm like, okay, we're doing good.
Yeah.
But on top of that, we had a lot of ice cream.
Yeah.
And that's sugar again, like your blood sugar increasing and being off, and
Right.
just the sugar itself, like that automatically creates inflammation. It's kind of hard to stop it.
Yeah. And I think too, aside from our diet and coffee and the foods, because there's always going to be a level of that, right? Like, you and I talk a lot about balance. Obviously, we can't completely eliminate any sort of toxin. But when you add these things in with traveling on a plane,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of radiation. When you're riding planes, you can do things to mitigate it, but you're getting some level of exposure. Um, and also, you know, just kind of environmental toxins. What's the water quality? That's a big one when we travel, is always like, what kind of water are we getting? We did okay. We found some like decent spring water. Um, and actually, the restaurant we liked had like 5 times filtered water, which was great.
Mhm.
So you've got that, but then you got to deal with like the water you're showering in and bathing in. You know, I don't think it's a secret. Like a lot of the water quality that comes out of your shower head, for example, is not great water. A lot of times that has a lot of toxins. You look at our Airbnb, what cleaning products were used. You know, there's endocrine disruptors in the scented candle plug outlet
Yeah,
things.
we
So
unplugged
we
one.
pull those out. We went to a restaurant and there was one in a socket next to us. We pulled it out. You know, so there's a lot at play, and we obviously do everything we can to mitigate it. So I think we had like a very we were present and aware of like all the things that we were being exposed to, but by the end of the trip, I definitely feel like we were feeling it.
Yeah, I mean, I was inflamed. It felt not great. My face was probably the biggest thing for me. Like, I just felt really puffy.
Yeah,
And I was like, "Oh my gosh, my whole body, my face, everything has changed like so fast." And I had a level of knowing like it was happening because of everything and because of the trip and because of the food. And, we were busy, which can also increase cortisol, even though I didn't feel stressed. It was just the fact of the matter was like we were busy and we were out and about and doing things and it was great. But also, you're kind of go, go, go a little bit.
yeah,
And we had our chill time and everything too. But um, I was aware of it there and we did our best to do what we could. The walking, we walked like 13,000 steps, like several days, like
yeah,
10,000 steps the other days. If we hadn't done that, we probably would have felt even worse.
yeah. And I mean that's the big thing is for me. Working with my naturopath and like the big discovery was my stomach acid's probably not as much as there should be and not as strong, and thus there's certain bacteria that are getting through into my intestines. Um, and obviously I'm working on that now, but like that's why when we are traveling, walking is so important for me to even like digest and de-bloat, frankly.
Mhm.
Um, So yeah, I think that having ways you're managing it is crucial. Obviously, exercise is a great one, but like when we travel, I don't have like, weights. That's why I love road trips. I can bring my weights, but when we're flying, I don't always have weights. I don't always have some exercise equipment, and we do Airbnbs a lot. So there's not like a gym I can go to. If we're in a place longer, we'll do like a membership or something, but it's difficult, my point is, to get like a dedicated workout when you're traveling. So, getting back home, there's a lot of stuff we did to get ourselves back into the swing of things, get rid of some of that inflammation. And I think seeing that, right? I think it's David Asprey talked about this is like sometimes you look at the scale and you see like, oh, I'm 4 or 5 pounds more than I usually am. That's not all water weight. Some of that is inflammation weight. So for me, kind of keeping an eye on the scale after getting home and getting back into a routine, I did. I had about 4 or 5 pounds of inflammation.
Yeah.
So, what kind of things do we do? Getting home, getting back into a routine.
Yeah. So I didn't weigh myself, but just before I get into it, I noticed immediately my face was so much slimmer.
Yeah.
The puffiness went away. I felt like my stomach went back down
Yeah, it definitely
so
did.
much. I was like, oh, wait, the baby didn't grow twice the size it was in Florida. Like
Yeah.
all of that just started happening within like a day or two. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. I look so much better, which made me like mentally feel good.
Yeah.
And that just really like the two biggest things I think were just our normal diet, cooking everything at home.
Yeah, getting back to whole foods. I mean, we really don't eat out a lot in our like day-to-day routine. Mostly because we don't feel good.
Yeah. So we went shopping, grocery shopping like the next full day that we were home and just cooked all our meals and that
Yeah.
felt great again. I think that was like an immediate thing. Getting back to drinking lots of water, our very nice filtered water with minerals added.
Yep.
And just like back to normal routine, sleep and exercise.
Less caffeine.
Yeah.
I will say in Florida, I slept really well. I mean, we were walking everywhere and I was like genuinely tired by the end of the day. Um, but less caffeine because when I'm in my normal routine, it seems anytime after 12, any amount of caffeine is going to keep me up all night. So yeah, we less caffeine. We eased back on the coffee. Lots and lots of water that's helping your body, flush toxins, hydrate your cells, um, and exercise. We both got back to an exercise routine and really got back into the swing of things.
Yeah, back to the gym. I had my prenatal yoga. And then we did, like, continued to prioritize walking. We've talked a lot about how we love walking and we walk our dogs and um, know how amazing it makes us feel. It's a
Yeah,
struggle a little bit more in the winter because when it's 0 degrees out and freezing cold wind, it's like, I don't want to go out.
yeah,
But there were a few warmer days and it's finally warming up. So I feel like it's easier to get
yeah,
outside. And
yeah,
after that being like the top thing that made us feel good in Florida, we were like, okay, we have to walk way more. Um,
yeah.
so doing that again just continued to help the inflammation go away much faster.
Yeah, and I think too, me personally, I think Florida was kind of a wake up call for me because I had been on a little binge of like sweets and not really paying attention to my diet, and I felt terrible by the end of it. Um, and so being home, I actually did start like a liver detox and a GI detox. I'm starting on a pre, and postbiotic. So I'm doing a lot now for my gut health and my microbiome. But I think too, like, there's a lot of stuff just by being in our house that is very helpful. So, like, we have air purifiers that are, pretty nice air purifiers that I think that's a big source of toxins. I believe there's some experts that have talked about this is, the benefit of just opening your window for 20 minutes a day sometimes. So, being in our place where we're not using toxic cleaners, we don't have artificial scents, made of petroleum or stuff like that. And, we're getting good water, we're getting good food. I got in the sauna a little bit, so a lot of this, it makes a huge difference, so
Yeah.
very helpful.
Yeah.
Anything else to add?
No, I think that's it. I think like it was really helpful to know what was going on and like having that level of awareness and knowing like the signs and symptoms and
And how to
seeing,
handle it.
yeah, like seeing the physical, like, oh my gosh. And it didn't take us weeks to
Right.
get the inflammation down. I mean, I felt better probably by day two.
Right.
Right in the like looked in the mirror and I was like, my face is like back to normal. And
Yeah.
I feel like I dropped a bunch of pounds without weighing myself and you could tell in like my belly. So I just really wanted to talk about this because it's inflammation is such a huge thing that so many people deal with, especially if you do eat out more or eat more processed food. It's like
Yeah.
you're probably constantly inflamed. So things you can do, signs and symptoms to look out for to see like, oh, it is inflammation, why it's possibly happening, and what you can do to help it.
Yeah. So, if you're, for me, like I said, a lot of times that's my gut. I'll get some bloating. Some people get it in their ankles. Their ankles get swollen. It could be circulation in your hands. A lot of times it's your face. It gets a little puffy.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of like things you can look for and watch out for. But yeah, to add on to that, I think that you are someone who's drinking, you go on your trip, you come home and maybe you're still drinking or you go out to a restaurant, you're more likely to be sustaining this inflamed state for a longer period. So it can definitely make a difference, but it can also, if you're on autopilot, just kind of be something that you're living in without really knowing.
Mhm.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.